Hello and welcome to True Grit Down Under, a ThyGap special show covering the Border-Gavaskar Test Series 2020-21 between India and Australia. My name is Bogus Noog and with me is my co-host,
Being Brut.
Welcome, Brut. Let's immediately just get into why we're doing this special in the first place.
Okay, I have two reasons right on top of my head. The first reason is we were bored doing the same kind of episodes again and again. Second, I don't think in the recent 20, 30, 40 years, there has been a sports event which had so much happening in it. Not just related to sport in itself, but the overall things that were happening, right? Mm-hmm. In the conditions that it was played and all the things that made up this series, right? I think it is only deserving that we spend our time making this special.
There are n number of cricket experts.
Yes.
Anyone who's leaving the game is pretty much taking a U-turn, coming back and being an expert or a commentator.
Yes, so, absolutely.
Week over week, month over month,
it just
the number of experts
snowball
are increasing.
Effect.
Yeah, it's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So in such a scenario, and also every cricket expert is pretty much opening or creating their YouTube account these days as well.
Oh yeah.
So in light of all of that, why did we still feel the need to create a show or a special on our own?
Because we want to make every other show look better. If our audience or any audience, in fact, want to know what is a good review of the test series.
We are the baseline.
We are the baseline. They have to check us out. It's imperative.
Okay.
The other reason is I think we will have a more public-driven approach. We both are like on the two extremes of the coin.
Right.
I am a huge fanatic of the game.
Right.
Someone who has played it at some level. Also, the amount I have followed the game, right? And then you, on the other hand,
I just like a good story.
Yeah,
I'm more of a cricket romantic, not really followed the game as much, and I do watch IPL just for entertainment.
Yeah,
but I watch serious cricket, which is of course good test cricket and the vintage cricket matches. I watch them purely for inspiration. I mean, for the stuff that's underlying the actual game itself. I may not be paying too much attention to the finer aspects,
the technicalities
of the game. But more about what a cricketer is bringing to that match and how they're turning unwinnable situations,
the impossibles into possibles.
Exactly. So I'm really drawn to that story.
Yeah.
So I think you mentioned earlier that we want to set a baseline and we want to make everyone else look good.
Yeah.
So keeping that humility and modesty aside for now, just for a second, let's try our hardest.
Okay.
I'd like to say that I think both of us felt after we watched the end of the series, the experts' opinions and commentary that was going on around regarding the series itself,
the amount of PR and press that was trying to get into the rat race to cover it.
For a guy like you who is closely connected to the game, as well as a guy like me who is not really that into the technicalities but just for the story, both of us ended up feeling that it all fell short.
Oh, I can't even start to describe how underwhelming it was, the post-series coverage, right? I completely agree with you. I really got disappointed by some of my go-to guys when they kind of didn't do justice in describing the series. And what I felt genuinely is they kind of rushed into it.
But even then, bro, these guys are, like you said, the go-to guys.
Yeah.
And even while the series was going on, when we were having conversations about what was happening, we did notice things that were maybe a little subtler. Let's say major events in the series, but also some minor events in the series that eventually had that snowball effect. So if we were able to notice it, and what was shocking to me was, I can understand if you were able to notice it, but even I was able to notice it.
Yeah.
So if both of us together were able to notice it, then how come the go-to people did not speak about most of these things?
Oh, what I feel is, so the first thing, if you have to go back before the series have even happened and listen to these cricket pundits, they didn't see it coming from any corner, right? And I'm no exception.
Yeah, none of us
are an exception. I think even the team didn't see it.
Yeah.
I mean, they started off horribly, right? And if you look at the experts also, they didn't just see it coming. They saw everything was against them. Like somebody's father passed away, somebody's daughter was born, and they're not there. And so many things are happening. But somehow it just defied odds in every way. And I wouldn't blame the experts, but because of before the series, whatever they've said.
I'm saying after. Like that's where we really.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Because they didn't see it coming, right? It was so overwhelming that whatever they could do, if you ask me, they should have taken time. They should have sat back, first kind of got their thoughts together and said, okay, fine. First, let us absorb what just happened in front of us.
Right.
Because this will happen once in 50 years. This will happen once in 100 years.
Right.
A Harsha Bogle would probably cover 2 or 3 series in his lifetime, which are of this impact. Right? That's all you get. Not every series will be like this. Not in a year, not in 5 years, not in a decade.
I think you make a valid point, but even with that, I still see a caveat there, which is ultimately they all tend to be repeating each other's words. At least then I would expect different experts to maybe catch different aspects of what was there, but they all tended to be saying the same thing.
You know, the guys who made the best of it were the guys who were farthest away from the series. Like a guy like Darren Goff, he made a very apt, observation of the game. I like what he said. Everybody that I've seen, especially people close, obviously who were, even the public who were absolutely involved with the series, the Australians were taken aback so much because everything that they dreamt of that will never happen to Australia, in Australia, has happened.
Yeah.
Everything in India were taken aback because nobody even cared that, hey, this is like, okay, we went because we had to. I just watched it because I don't care of the obvious. I just want to watch. But then as I was watching, there were more eyes which started coming towards along with me. You woke up at like 5 in the morning to watch the match. That's something that I would do, right?
Right.
I don't think you can justify this. Any amount of wisdom or language will not be able to justify how this series resulted in. And it just showed, I think it humbled a whole bunch of people, saying that, hey, you know what, this game still is much bigger than us. No matter how much of a grip or how much of knowledge we garner about the game still has so much to give you. We're just passing clouds, But everybody went into picking on things too fast, and I think it was more like a shock reaction.
Yeah, that's I was
it's
going
like
to say
when
that.
somebody punches you hard, you don't really think of landing your punch, but you just swing your hand, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. People just swung their hands left, right, center, hoping that,
Yeah, and from my side, the reason why I actually was watching this series from the first ball was because for a casual fan like myself, I like to ensure that I'm spending my time with cricket where it is most valuable. So I eventually realized okay, I can watch T20 because it's entertaining and it gets done quick.
Right.
So it's not taking up too much of my time.
Yeah.
But then after that, I can watch Test cricket because it is definitely the best format of the game.
Absolutely.
And but even there, I was like, okay, if I'm going to spend time with Test series, I'm going to do it with away series.
Yeah.
Because that's a bigger challenge for my team. And of all the teams, it was Australia. So all of these things, all of these reasons together were, contributing to why I woke up and watched from ball one, of course, not knowing what the hell was going to happen.
Absolutely.
And what I was in for.
At any given point.
But I think what we're saying here is that the combination of shock and awe and also the
overconfidence. I'll put overconfidence also there, because even midway through the series, right, the same experts were like, hey, you know what, still in Australia's favor.
Right.
I don't think anybody actually gave a chance to India, even mid-series.
Yeah, so I was just saying, so the combination of shock and awe and then absolute joy and then the aftertaste of disappointment is all of these together is what made us decide that we should do a special. Where we talk about things that we did not see other people talk about.
And also ask questions. I want to know, where is Ricky Ponting? I want to know, where is Shane Warne? I want to know, where is Mark Taylor? I want to hear their review. I want to hear their take. I don't get to see their take at all. And these guys were in the commentary team, right? They should be the first guys to actually come out and like, it's a great series by India, and do something like that. Where is Adam Gilchrist? None of them, Only Michael Clark, just because I think Mr. Boria dragged him out of his house early in the morning.
Tell me something.
Please tell me what it was. Please.
Just tell me.
Just tell me. Don't care whether I'm listening or not. Just tell me. I just want to record it.
I want to hear it. That's it.
I want to have audio when I'm taking my bath, when I'm having a dump. I want to play it in my phone and listen to all this.
Right.
But I just want to I really want to know where these guys are,
I tried to look for it, but I think what they did was they geographically limited that content.
I don't know.
From coming.
It's unfair, it's really unfair if you ask me. I think they should come out and speak, right? Or give their take. Because these are the guys who are like, hey, typical Australians, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a question that I have in my mind nevertheless. I just want to hear these guys. But I hope now at least you realize, I'm sure you do, but for the sake of the conversation, the beauty and the magnanimity and the subtlety of what Test cricket is.
Oh yeah, I am already out of love with ODI. ODI is a format now I don't like and I don't feel like watching. It's neither here nor there. Test is where the real drama and the real challenge is for me. And so I'm definitely drawn to Test, even more so to away tests. But before we go any further into the actual Test series itself, tell me about Test cricket. Why is Test cricket important? Why does it even matter?
Barring boxing, I don't know of a game which can test you mentally and physically at this level. What I mean is, the game is played for 5 days, right? It's played for about 8 hours every day. The beauty of it is, how it is testing you physically is very simple. Playing it for 5 days in different weather conditions, you're just there in the ground, toiling, and you have to bowl like 40 overs. If you're a bowler, if you're a batsman, you have to play like 200 balls. That's about like 40 overs again. So all that is physically daunting. But look at it this way. How does it affect you mentally? In a one-day cricket, I play a rash shot, I get out. That's that. You know, every time you play a bad shot as a batsman, it takes some time for you to recover from it mentally. Like, hey, yaar, I wish I didn't play that shot because I knew that ball was swinging out, but I thought of leaving it. I should have stuck to leaving it. There's 110 things that are happening in your head, right?
Yeah.
But the game is over that day.
Yeah.
So the slate is clean. So the next one day that you play, you at least have 2 or 3 days as a gap. So, you know, you're going back, sitting in the pool, listening to music, doing whatever you have to do for 3 days, and you can go fresh into the next match.
Right.
Imagine that happens in a test match. You play one bad shot. You're sitting in the pavilion for God knows how long. And you just have that evening to recover mentally. The next day you're still in the ground. And imagine it's a high possibility that you're still thinking that, yeah, I shouldn't have played that shot. And on top of it, if the opposition is doing well, it's salt on your bruise, right? You're like, shit, if I wouldn't have done something so rash, this
We
wouldn't
would
have been the situation.
In a better situation.
Yeah, the scoreboard keeps rubbing on your face if it's a bad day. Same thing for a bowler. It's not like a one day where one day you bowl 10 good balls, you might get 2-3 wickets.
Right.
And that's what happens. In 10 overs, every over there's a possibility of bowling one good ball, one genuine wicket-taking ball. But in a test match, it takes 150% of effort to actually pick up a wicket.
So it's like you keep paying the price for your mistake over 5 long
days.
And
right?
and the impact of your mistake, it's mounting.
It's a snowball
every passing day.
Every single day.
And in between all of that standing and waiting, you're taking breaks to have a drink, or you're going off to have lunch. With food in your tummy, you're supposed to come back and again, switch on. And throughout those 8 hours, there's going to be that one ball that at some point is going to come at you.
The frequency at which you'll get a chance. If you miss a chance, if you drop a catch, there's no immediate redemption. In a one-day match, if you drop a catch, there's a good chance that you get another catch in about like 4-5 overs.
Yeah.
That apart, the amount of calculation that you have to do as a batsman, if that is, you have to make sure that, hey, you know what, there's so much of time, so many overs left. This is how I'll play in these many overs. Okay, the pitch is changing from morning to evening.
Yep.
Biggest factor. And the pitch generally is not the same for all 5 days.
Yeah, it keeps changing.
It keeps changing, right? It keeps getting worse. You have to play with the same ball for 80 overs. Do you know at what level you have to play the game as a bowler to make a 70-over-old ball do something of the pitch?
There's just uncountable variables.
I just can't think of
to contend with.
Yeah. I just can't think of any other sport which challenges an individual at so many levels. It has layers, and upon all this, you have the human element. There's somebody constantly chippering in your ear.
Right.
There's somebody constantly distracting you. There is a crowd having expectations on you.
Yeah. Or someone in your team is physically breaking down, and you can see that happen. Like injury cases where, they're fine on day one. But it starts getting worse.
Or guilt. Yeah. You got somebody run out, right? Yeah. And say he's the best player of your team. Like what happened to Rahane?
Yeah.
Right? You have to live with that guilt, saying that, hey, you know what? It was my bad. Now, how do you cope up with it in the middle of the ground while these people are blaming you, saying that, hey, Mike, you got your captain out, Mike. Yeah. Hey, Kohli is out, Mike, because of you, Mike.
And you also have a good idea of what's going on outside the ground.
Yeah.
In the world.
Yeah. And most importantly, you have to disconnect the noise so that you can concentrate, which is even tough. I mean, the list goes on, Bogus. For me,
even above all this, if it rains, like weather.
If it rains, I mean, like, I don't know.
All the
Rain,
calculations.
the only thing that ever saved a test match, I think the biggest contributor is rain. But no, I mean, this is, if anybody out there still doesn't believe in or still has the idea that test cricket is boring format, doesn't take a lot, blah blah blah, I would suggest that they should look into it a little more deeper to see the gravity that game gives, or the situation that game puts you in, right? And I'm so glad that today a guy like Virat Kohli endorses test cricket,
Right.
being a national team captain. He
Not
endorses
just
it.
that, he is like one of the endorsements. Ambassadors
He's
of
the
the
face
game,
of endorsement.
of the
Yeah.
game at a global level.
Yeah. So that for me is test cricket. And that for me is why test cricket is the most important sport ever played, because no other sport I've seen, like I said, again, barring boxing, no other sport has that slow poison, slow death kind of a
Yeah.
concept, right? Where you feel helpless.
Yeah.
Where you're lonely,
Yeah.
playing in the ground. All these things, right? It's pretty. Imagine you're feeling at fine leg for 20 overs where the ball doesn't even come to you. You're just standing there.
Right.
Right? Do you know how easy it is for you to get distracted?
Yeah.
Or just get lost in your thoughts and just start like
You
dreaming.
can easily zone out.
But the game doesn't allow you to.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. So boxing, again, I think because of the nature of the sport, again, of how boxing is, when somebody is trying to punch you, you still have to be on the offense and evade and then throw back a punch.
And also, you have to imagine, for the boxers themselves, time definitely does slow down. It might feel like 5 days in that ring.
Yeah, 3 minutes of being in a ring with a guy like Mike Tyson. Oh, sweet Lord, it would
Could
be 10,
feel like an eternity.
So that's why I would probably put boxing and test cricket on the same pedestal, because when you're being punched, to think straight while you're being punched in the face is probably, even to look at it, it's a very tough job.
Yeah.
Right. And they do say that boxing is actually a very intelligent guy's sport, because you have to anticipate, you have to assume, you have to do so many things, and then you still have to like be in a position to punch.
Yeah.
So for me, boxing and test cricket are on the same pedestal, where they demand a lot of physical strain, but they demand even more mental grit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that for me is the epitome of what sport is. Like, it tests you to the bone, like, and it can make or break a person also.
Yeah, and the ultimate kicker for me, from the story aspect, the ultimate kicker for me is that it's not just a victory or a defeat. You have a third result that's possible. So these 22 guys toil for 5 days and still there could be no result at the end. It could be a draw. That's really, for me, it adds that, I don't know what to call it, but it's just almost like a cruel irony or something.
Yeah, see, on paper, draw looks so bad, right?
Yeah.
But this series, it showed all three results: a loss, a draw, and a win, right? By the same team. 2 wins, but let's consider just all three results.
Yeah.
Every result gave you so much of respect to the game.
Yeah.
The first result, when you lose, it showed you you're never bigger than the game.
Yeah, and
at any
it
given
also showed you the amount of variables and all that we were talking about.
Yeah.
The other aspect of it is you could be dominant until the 11th
All
hour.
it takes is like half an hour.
All it takes is 30 minutes
30
after,
minutes.
All these days.
One good sumptuous lunch or whatever.
You're done.
Right? Yeah. And it also showed that even to get a draw is not easy.
Yeah.
The amount of toil that you have to do to save a test match.
Yeah.
You physically saw in this series what it takes. And it also showed that the physical element of the game is only so much if you have that much of mental strength.
I think-
And that's a lesson for life. That particular day was an example that our physical body is only so much for us. What really matters for our excellence or our success is how much of mental strength that we develop.
Yeah.
And then is when you control things. Because any other day, when they were physically fit, none of them played that kind of an innings until they were pushed to adversity. Test cricket for me can be basically a life science coach, right, where you play just to learn what life is. You play like 5 test matches, right? In school they should do it. In fact, like, make kids play test match, and then they will know what it takes to. It's not just like a victory of one session. It's not a victory of one day. You will win some, you will lose some, but there is a bigger goal.
There's the battles and then there's the war.
Yeah, and you know what it takes to win a war than to win a battle.
Right.
And you can't be happy that you just won one battle. And that's what the first test showed. The first test showed that you have won 6 battles, but because of that one battle that you lost the war.
Right. When you're talking about the kinds of victories and the kinds of defeats and the draws we saw in this series, it really has been a victory that was snatched out of nowhere in just 30 minutes. Then a victory that was more or less standard test match kind of a victory. And then a draw that was so hard fought, and it was so...
Which meant more than a victory, ironically.
It meant more than a victory. That's the
weird part about it.
Right? Weirdest thing, which is that draw felt so much more like a victory.
Satisfying.
So much more satisfying. And it's so weird for a casual fan, for me to say this, that a draw is more satisfying than a victory. But that was the case. And in the end, that unexpected victory from just nowhere.
Yeah. I'm just so glad that it happened.
Me too.
You know, I'm just so glad that this series happened the way it happened.
Yeah.
You just look back at it from a distance and you can't stop but get emotional about it.
Yeah.
Yes, as an Indian, you know, you obviously
There's
have
that's
an extra dramatic nature of it.
Right.
But even as a person, remove all the name tags, remove all the colors. Just look at the game for what it is. And you can't help but appreciate it for what it is giving you back.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm amazed by. I can't think of a better word than being humbled, right? Because even, see, in a country like India especially, where there is so much of importance given to the knowledge of the game and so on and so forth,
right?
This just said that all you 1 billion people don't matter. All that matters is the guys who are there, that 11 guys or the 20 guys who are in the dressing room and on the ground. Those are the guys who matter. So, you know, you better shut your trap up. Let them do their job.
Yeah,
right?
All things considered, I think humbling is probably the best way that you could, if you had to encapsulate the whole thing in one word. And it not just for Indians, you know, even more so for the Australians.
More so for Australians.
But yes, there's the added factor that as Indians, we have an emotional reaction to it.
Yeah.
But then after this series ended, like we were watching some content and there was description of the 1960-61 test of victory of West Indies. In Australia, even though there's no India involved there, when you hear the story of how they won, it gives you the same kind of emotion about the game and about the greatness of what they achieved. So it's really, this series is really one for the ages.
It has a very elusive effect of a greater good. I don't know how. I just can't connect the dots. But
tough to describe.
Yeah, but I just feel it. I just know it that, okay, you know what?
Boria is writing a book on it.
I know Boria is going to be boring, but I think majority of his book, I think the name of his book would be Read, Please. Please read. I want you to read, please.
Read this, please. Please read this.
Fuck. I think I'm high or something. I don't know. But Boria would be writing this book and naming this book. Please read. Please.
Or it'll be, the book's name would be Please Read This.
Yeah, Please Read
and
This.
And the audio book would be...
For once.
No. The audio book would be read by David Warner or Michael Carcass. Michael, please read this book.
Yeah. Fuck. No, but, you know, going back to the point, I just can't get over that. Please read this. It's so funny. And
welcome to the interview. Tell me, please. Just tell me. I'm going to go get coffee. You keep telling.
For your benefit, I've freezed my screen, okay? Just look into my eyes and start yapping, okay? Oh, fuck. Boria was the most desperate correspondent or press correspondent who was there, who tried to like milk this situation the most.
No, but quite literally, he's writing a book on the series.
I know. I've heard.
In that Pujara video, he said.
Yeah. And he said also, please, for my book, you do. He directly asked Pujara to endorse the book. Oh, this is... When you were taking those blows, please tell me what you were feeling. Please. I think it was in the interview with Siraj. He was like, आपका पिताजी का देहांत हो गया, आपके मन में क्या चल रहा था? एक बार बोलिए, please. एक बार, please. And Siraj was I think he also was I think in a shock of the whole series and how it went for him, right? Personally.
Yeah.
So he also is, I don't think he just kind of still got back to senses.
Obviously not.
Because he just came back.
Especially in his position. For him to have performed the way he did as well.
Led the bowling attack. So many things.
Yeah.
And Siraj was he just spoke out the itinerary he had since he landed in India, which was hilarious. It's a sad thing to say that, but I felt very bad for Siraj. I think you could see that he was in so much of, he was put there, right? Not because he wanted to be there, but rather he was just put there.
Yeah, and it's not just this. Cricket or not, amazing series or not, if a guy's father just passed away,
you just leave
the worst thing you can do is make him talk again and again
about that. Yeah, on a public platform, even worse. Probably in a personal you can probably say dude, vent it out to me.
Yeah,
you know what, it's okay, you can cry
and
or
he'll
whatever.
Feel good about talking about it
just chalo, he's weight off his chest.
Yeah,
but on a public platform through a video call, you're please and it's I felt like punching Boria, dude. Leave my Hyderabadi friend alone, bitch.
Okay.
No,
some parts of this we may have to cut out.
We have to cut out the whole thing. So that, for me, it's the same thing. There was something so elusive about the series that it went beyond the sport for me.
And that point exactly is why, after the series has ended, even now when I watch the highlights, which by the way, great job Cricket Australia, but even now when I watch those highlights, now I'm ending up feeling this is not all of it. There's so much more. It was not just boundaries and wickets.
It was like reading a book. Every time you read a book, you find something new about the book. Yeah. Right? It was the same for me.
So now I'm feeling shortchanged when I watch these highlights. And I feel no, I want the whole meat. I want everything. I want someone to lay the whole thing in order for me to just keep enjoying it over and over. And probably that's why we're doing this special.
Yeah, absolutely. And also for me, it was almost I didn't want it to end.
Yeah.
It was almost play another series.
Please,
play another
go
test.
To Perth.
Yeah, go to Perth. Do whatever. Yeah. Right? Go to New Zealand for all I care. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Just go keep playing. It was a very selfish thing, but when Gabba test got over and the next day morning when I got up, I was almost why are they not playing another test match?
There's absolutely
why can't it be a perfect fight?
Yeah.
Why should it be 4? It was so good that you didn't want it to end. I think after Sydney test, I almost felt I don't care if they win or lose. I just wanted to play the way they're playing.
Yeah, after we saw what we saw in Sydney, it was even if Australia take the series off with Gabba, it's okay.
Yeah.
We got what we wanted.
Yeah.
And Australia would have to play very well to pull Gabba off these people's hands.
And it was almost too kind of the Indian team to no, you know what, we'll make this better for you.
Oh my God.
It was you had a 7-course meal and then, the hotel was
the best is
ate
yet to
well.
come.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a surreal series, dude. Too good to be true.
And from the story aspect as well, a part of me was really happy that the series is called Border-Gavaskar and both Border and Gavaskar are there watching and commenting and giving their inputs. That's so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have one caveat that BCCI doesn't invest enough to do a thorough coverage.
The media, the quality of the...
Yeah, I think...
England and Australia are way ahead of other teams.
You can say that. Australia even more, I feel.
Yeah, even more.
Than England.
Cricket Australia is the best.
It's one of the most advanced way of... I think covering their own team. I think BCCI should do, with the kind of money and the resources and all that they have, I think they deserve to do a lot better job, especially because I really, really want to know what was happening inside the pavilion now. I'm almost extremely curious.
Yeah.
But that's my take. T20, yes, great.
Popcorn.
Yeah, popcorn. It's rom-com. One day, okay, fine, great, once again. But test, it's Shakespeare for me. It's poetry. It is for those who are patient. It's for those who love the bigger picture. It's not for everybody. It's for the best of the best, right?
Yeah.
And it's played by the best of the best.
So, Brut, ever since the series ended, there's a lot going on about 36 all out. 36 all out.
Number 36.
The number 36 has never gotten this much publicity.
Never.
Ever in the past.
There is an uncanny, occurrence that has happened across the series, by the way. So the first thing is, the previous time, Adelaide, the previous time we won a test in Australia, we gave them a lead of 33 runs and we ended up winning the test.
Okay.
The same thing happened at Gabba. There were 3 guys who scored a half century in the second innings.
Yeah.
And it only happened the third time that 3 Indian batsmen scored half centuries in the 4th innings of a test in Australia.
Okay.
Okay. The first time we got out, the lowest score we got was 36, right?
Right.
And the first innings score that we had at Gabba test was 336.
Right.
Okay, so there is 33 and there is 36. We won with 3 wickets in hand with 3 overs to spare.
Yes.
And this is the third highest run chase India did in tests on a 4th innings. Do you see the number of threes that are coming out there?
Yeah.
It is unbelievably uncanny. And our captain, stand-in captain, was the captain for only 3 tests in the series.
Okay. Right. Wow.
But yeah, back to 36.
Back to the
Number 36.
D36.
What is your take on 36?
It was so odd. It felt like something came undone. You could really relate with the shocked and almost frozen reaction that you're watching across the screen. Because even after the 36 happened and they came back to defend that low total, and you saw the body language of the Indian players.
Yeah.
And also the way they walked off the field.
Yeah.
It was all so understandable.
Yeah.
But I could not think of any way to explain it, rationalize it. It's just something you just watched and you froze.
You know the freaky part
Something
about
like that.
that whole session? Every ball that would miss the edge took the edge. All through the series, Australia was horrible fielding. That was the only session that just took every single catch that came their way.
Yeah.
And they somehow, they just bowled good balls.
Yeah.
And if you look at the overall pattern of cricket, right, this happens with every team. It happened to Australia. I think they got bowled out for some 41, 48. Recently, it happened to England in the last 10 years. So I think every 30 years or so, this occurrence, it's like a solar eclipse.
Right.
It is bound to happen. You just don't know when it will happen. You can't see it coming. You can't predict it or forecast it. But it will happen with every team. Every team will collapse on a given day horribly. So when the 36 happened, it was almost like good that it happened. Now it's done.
Okay.
Now I don't have to worry for another 20, 30 years that this will happen again. If it happens, it's a freak show. It's a freak coincidence. I was not disappointed or like you said, I didn't get angry or anything
Right.
personally.
Right.
Because we played very good cricket up till then.
Yeah.
We played a fantastic first innings. We bowled really well. The only thing I was worried a lot about was the fielding. We fielded horribly.
Yeah.
I think we dropped some very, very elementary catches in the first. I think all through the test, in fact, but more so in Adelaide. Everything was going for us. Probably that run out of Virat Kohli was another most disappointing thing because of Virat Kohli, my sweet lord, he was determined to get that century because he didn't have a century that year, like 2020, and he was hell-bent on getting that century.
Yeah.
And you could see it coming also.
Yeah,
The way he was playing, it was just a
Absolutely.
matter of 20 odd runs.
Yeah.
And you could see it coming again. Like, you know, it's a bad call.
Yeah.
Can't say much about it. But yeah, like I was happy. Bumrah was bowling well. Ashwin was bowling well. Like the bowling was doing well.
We had more sessions. in that
We
test.
won more sessions, in the test. So when it actually happened, it was still not like Australia dismantled us.
Yeah.
You know, it just felt like, it was one unlucky session.
Yeah.
I think the good part was there was no build up to it that, first innings they kind of dragged themselves through and second innings I don't see how because on, tougher third day pitch or fourth day pitch, whatever.
Yeah, in fact, in terms of expectations, it was quite opposite because Bumrah was the night watchman.
Yeah.
And he played so well,
Yeah.
saving that wicket.
Correct.
You almost expected that we're already off to a great start
Yeah.
here. Probably everyone is expecting
And-
Bumrah to make a half century. the next
Exactly,
time.
right?
Yeah.
Because he made that half century in the warm-up game
Yeah,
or whatever. In my head, it reduced the chances of India furthermore to win the series. And it made a draw look like an uphill task for India, considering what was to come. I'm not even talking about injuries, right? I'm just talking about the team that was there in hand at the end of the first test. So for me, when I looked at, Virat Kohli leaving, and I think in the first test, barring Kohli, nobody else played.
Yeah.
Right? I think he was the only guy who played a good 77, and I think Ajinkya Rahane played a good 30 odd or 40 or something like that.
40 odd.
Pujara played at 30 something. So nobody really made a lot of runs.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, fine, now Kohli is going, so that's 100 runs away. So that was the calculation I was making, like, okay, fine, who will come? That 36, what I was afraid of, more than India losing confidence, I was thinking, how much of confidence will Australian bowlers get?
Okay.
That's where I was sitting at the end of the Adelaide test saying, oh, shit. Okay, so these guys have their tails up.
Yeah.
That means extra yard of pace, extra attacking field. And Steve Smith has not yet fired. So it's just a matter of time for him to fire.
Yeah.
Labuschagne already seems to be in the groove.
Yeah.
There's a probability that Warner might come back.
So coming back to the 36, bro, we covered the immediate aftermath of when it happened.
Yeah.
And what happened after the immediate aftermath was, in my observation, two things happened. One was, as an Indian fan, you were
Now
really
this is the reality part.
Yeah.
Like all this while we were like
hypotheticals.
hypothetically what happens and what we were thinking. And
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
But now let's get to the reality. What actually happened after 36?
Yeah. And in my observation, I saw two things happening. One was, as an Indian fan, after such a shocking event, you want to hear something, anything from the Indian dressing room. Like
Some
kind
excuse.
of, no, not even excuse, like some statement or
Yeah.
reaction or a response. And there was a deafening silence.
Yeah.
And that kind of, it was adding to my anxiety. What are they thinking? Like, how are they processing it?
Yeah.
But on the other side, outside of the game itself, it got very loud.
Yeah.
And
Which was expected.
expected, of course. And all kinds of predictions were being thrown out thick and fast. So we'll start with the predictions now. Tell me what you thought about the predictions that came out after 36 All Out.
Are we talking about the voracious 4-0 predictions coming out left, right, center?
Yeah.
To be honest, it was fair.
Okay.
You know, it was possible. It was more possible than we making a comeback. We lost Shami.
Yeah.
Virat Kohli left.
Yeah.
Umesh Yadav didn't have a great first test match. We already didn't have Ishant Sharma and Bhuvneshwar Kumar, who probably would have given us more wickets. Our first bet of our opener bombed.
Yeah.
And he got exposed like nobody else. He was like a naked mule on the ground with his lack of technique. So these were our challenges. And we didn't still have like a concrete solution, or at least we didn't hear of any solution.
Yeah,
like
we heard
you said,
nothing.
like you said, there was deafening silence.
Yeah.
So it only created more anxiety, right? Like, okay, fine. Who are they going to? Is it KL Rahul? Is it Mayank Agarwal? Are they going to promote Rahane on top? Or Rahane being the captain, will he take? Because Rahane did open in some of the test matches. So all these questions are going on. And at that point, we still don't know where the third test match or the fourth test match was being played.
Yeah.
So all these things were going on. So if you're asking me about the predictions that people were making, that the 4-0 prediction and all that, I felt it was fair.
Reasonable.
It's reasonable. That's what Australia is known to do in Australia.
Yeah, so when the Melbourne test started, the way the Melbourne test went, it kind of got me even more curious about what happened exactly after 36 in that dressing room. Like I said, I'm a big fan of the human story, and I'm very interested in management and leadership.
Yeah.
And it was clear that something very special had to have happened in that dressing room for them to come back in the way they did.
Yeah.
And now that we know what happened, which is they went back and the think tank of the team basically decided that we're not going to say
Not
a
to
word.
discuss it.
We're not going to discuss it at all. They called off practice sessions, even when players were eager because they were reacting.
See, this is what I was telling you, right?
Yeah.
When you get out like that, you really want to correct it.
Yeah.
Because you hardly have any time.
Yeah, I think just the call to take, first of all, to say, we're not going to talk about this. All of you go back to your rooms. And all these players, like you said, they're so eager to correct their mistakes. And they're being told, no, go back.
Yeah.
You're not going to
They're
practice.
forced back to relax.
They're forced back to just take a break and give themselves some space.
Yeah.
And that was the intention why they did it. I think it takes a lot of mental fortitude, especially when even the coaching staff or the think tank knows better than the players also what's going on outside back in India. And even in Australia, what are people saying? They know very well. So
Our own men disowned us.
Yeah.
It's almost like Gavaskar himself is like, this is pathetic batting.
No, I mean, Gavaskar is exempt. It's named after him.
He can say that.
Yeah. But
Boria will never get to Gavaskar.
But for them to decide ki this is how we're going to react, no practice for you, and the players are just now left in their own rooms to process it by themselves.
Yeah.
And then for them to decide ki let's all meet up for dinner and play dumb charades. That was the cherry on top for me.
When I first heard of this story, I thought it was such a Marwadi idea.
Well, is that what they do when their businesses fail or something?
I guess so.
Do their
I'm
businesses
assuming.
even fail?
That is one. But I'm assuming like Marwadis are the guys who like tambola khelenge. Like, but on the hindsight, it is so brave of those guys.
Yeah,
To take the call.
exactly.
And the lesson to learn is, sometimes when in life when you fail, take a break, put a stop to everything,
Right.
sit back, and and relax. Just try to like be normal again. Let
Right.
it wear off. Let the failure wear off. I think we all are victims of the unnecessary quotes like try till you succeed. Failure is a stepping stone for success, blah, blah, blah. But really don't know what it means,
We find it very hard to step away from the problem.
Yeah.
But that's sometimes the best thing you can do.
That is what I think is extremely needed.
Yeah.
And I think I can't stop myself from saying this. Companies or corporates should adopt this. Like generally, if somebody fails
Yeah.
or is not able to do their basic job, there's only more pressure. There's only more
Yeah.
emphasis on try this, try that, do this, do that. Sometimes managers should go and say, you know what, take a day off. I'll take care of it. Just go back home, spend time, do whatever you want to do to chill, and come back tomorrow, we'll discuss. It's not that you're not going to discuss, you're not going to face the problem.
Yeah.
But not right now.
Right.
You're not going to think straight just because you came out of a bad meeting. you
Right.
know?
Because what I see in my experience so far in the corporate world is managers love to play past the parcel. Their boss is shitting on them. The manager has to in turn just shit on his...
Waterfall effect.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what is it. Yeah. It's like...
It's just a shitfall, basically.
Yeah, from one level to another, and it's
But it's never a manager either
who absorbs it.
absorbs it or gives it back to the seniors, letting them know, hey,
Give him some time.
just give them
Be
some
off.
time. We have this, our plate is full right now.
Yeah.
My guys need some time.
Yeah.
So they buy some time for their directs.
Right.
And that's what you saw after this 36, where
Absolutely.
these guys shielded the team from all the nonsense and all the white noise.
Correct.
And just said, let's play dumb charades.
Yeah.
And the other,
Let's be dumb about it.
let's be silly.
Let's be silly, yeah.
Yeah.
And they laughed.
Yeah.
They laughed and they kind of felt normal, and it worked, right?
It
worked like a
wonders. And the other subtle thing that really stood out for me is anytime any of these coaching staff, Ravi Shastri, Bharatar and Sridhar, wanted to communicate something to a player, first they discussed among themselves.
How do you communicate?
Is this the right message?
Yeah.
This is what I want to say. Is this the right way to put it? And then they come to a consensus. And then the message goes out to the player.
Yeah.
This also, if people could emulate
Yeah.
in a corporate structure or something like that, I mean, it makes so much difference.
Rethink about what you're going to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just,
Yeah, and when they did talk about it, when they did address it, Ravi Shastri said to the team, wear this 36 like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
It's probably the funniest thing or the most ironical thing to tell a team, that this is what you're going to wear as a badge of honor. But he, of course, meant it.
in a more positive.
Yeah, he meant it in terms of turnaround.
Yeah.
This is your rock bottom, and from here, the only way is up, basically. So all kinds of right messages going out to the team and critical, subtle leadership decisions, management decisions that impact an individual so positively.
Yeah.
I was so impressed when I heard what had happened.
But I'll ask you a question. What do you think was happening in the Australian camp? What do you think Justin Langer was telling his team?
My guess is, Kohli's gone. Shami's gone.
It's
Boys-
Aussies, mites.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't blame them, but because they like to positively reinforce themselves from that angle of
They like those ego massage
the
scenarios.
ego massage or the dominance aspect.
Yeah.
So my guess is that obviously we don't know what exactly happened, but
In the sense, I want to know,
yeah,
right?
me too.
What I want to know was, what was Justin Langer writing in his book saying that this is what went right for us? Or this is what we did well.
Right.
Because you have nothing to decode in a 36. Look at it from the other way around. Yes, we got out for 36. Great.
Yeah.
What do you get out of it as a bowling side? Because replicating a 36, almost impossible.
Yeah.
If I am in Justin Langer's shoes, what is my takeaway?
The only thing I can think of is awesome, we took all our catches. Because the bowlers, it's not like they did better than what they were expected to do. They were already
best bowling attack.
attack. And it's not surprising that all of them landed the channel consistently and constantly. because they already are
It was
known
not
to do
even
that.
a fifth day pitch.
Yeah.
The pitch was not drastically misbehaving. It was in fact a batting pitch.
Yeah, so the only thing positively to take away is probably that they caught everything because their standards are already high. They've already set a high standard there.
You know what is my takeaway?
What?
There's hardly so much to learn in a win, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
It's such a wrong place to be at, right? Like imagine you come back to the drawing board and like, okay guys, what shall we discuss? Bowling team, you can take off. Like go home. Like,
But I
there's nothing
think
can
that would be the right call because all of the problem was with the batting. So bowlers, stretch your legs, go to the pool.
Yeah.
You, rest of you need to sit and we need to have a talk. You know, I think that's what it probably would have been and should have been also. Well, what are you going to tell the bowlers? They killed it.
But you know, if you go a little further, which we'll cover in the coming time,
Yeah.
it was the bowling that failed them relentlessly.
Yeah, I mean,
Which is why
I'm
I
a little
feel
50-50 on that, but because for me, was it really the bowling or was it something deeper?
I think it was the bowling. I purely think it was the bowling. For the best 4 bowlers of the world, not to pick 20 wickets in a match, it's shameful.
But-
which is why I feel that 36 worked more in favor of India on the hindsight, not at that point.
Right.
But if I look at it on the hindsight, they shouldn't have let them go to the pool. If I was Justin Langer, I wouldn't have let them go to the pool. I don't know what the conversation was. So it's just an assumption.
Yeah.
If, considering how Langer was handling the team overall, if he let the bowlers go to the pool, then I think that was a wrong call. Because sometimes in a win, you have to decode how you did that so you can replicate it. There's a very funny incident. I'll go a little off the topic.
No, this is not off the top. It's actually a very good point. Continue.
No, the reason is I'm going to quote the great Sunil Gavaskar. So Gavaskar's hero in cricketing world was Rohan Kanhai.
Right.
Who was a West Indian captain batsman, amazing batsman. He was such a big hero that Gavaskar named his son as
Rohan.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting story that he spoke about in his autobiography, where he went to Rohan Kanhai and he asked him like, how do you maintain consistency? Right. I hardly see you have a bad game or a bad innings. Like, what do you do? What Rohan Kanhai told Gavaskar that day, which apparently Gavaskar did follow for the rest of his career. He said, every time I have a good innings, I play well, I come back and I write down each and every thought I had from the moment I start wearing my gear, pick up the bat. I write down points or thoughts like which song I was thinking of, what breakfast I ate, what did I like about the breakfast.
Oh my God.
He would just journal out all those thoughts. And if he felt that he was not playing well or he was not in the zone, he would come back to the dressing room, pick out the diary, read all of those points, and he would just try to replicate as many as possible just to get into that zone, get into that frame of mind. So what he essentially used to do was he used to document his wins, right, as an individual performer, and never document his losses. Okay, because if he lost, he basically lost. So in a way, he strengthened his strengths more than worry about his weakness. And I'll connect this to another interview, another favorite player of mine. Anil Kumble takes 10 wickets in an innings against Pakistan. Post-match presentation, Ravi Shastri asking Anil Kumble, what was going through your mind? And Anil Kumble simply said, so I knew what were the balls which I was strong in bowling, and I just tried to bowl them. And once in a while, I would bowl that bad ball and I would not worry about it. It was my day, so things happened. And I got all the 10 wickets. This is what I think was probably missing, because that was the only innings in the whole series where the bowlers bowled the ball up. All the Australian bowlers, they bowled up to the batsman. They didn't bowl it too short. They didn't bowl it too full. They bowled well in the good length area.
Yeah.
Everybody nicked the ball at the good length area.
Yeah.
It's neither too back, neither too forward. But after that, I didn't see them bowl that. They just didn't. I just feel they didn't replicate that innings ka bowling performance again in the series. Which is why I feel if Justin Langer let the bowlers loose, he should have got back, should have sat down and said like, boys, let's just go through all the wickets and see what we did right. I mean, if they have not done the exercise.
Right. It's tough to say because we don't know.
We don't know.
But the Rohan Kanhai story, it seems like he analyzed his successes way more than normal people analyze their failures.
Yeah.
And it's like the analogy of people generally remember God only when they're in trouble. But then there's this small minority of the people who generally only remember God when they're happy.
Yeah.
It's the flip side of that. And what a great impact that can have on you.
And see what has happened of Gavaskar. Picking out that one leaf.
Yeah.
This is like a great hack to life in general, right?
No, it's a great hack to human nature.
Yeah.
Because even if you look on social media, no matter how many of a positive comments or feedback you get, that one negative troll is what stands out for you.
Yeah.
And really takes up your mental space.
Correct.
Way more than all this positive reaffirmation.
Yeah.
It's just human nature.
Yeah.
And so this is really a great hack to going against our natural instinct, but actually choosing something that is good for us.
Yeah.
For a change.
And that's why I was also trying to think what was happening in the Australian dressing room after that 36, because the 36 has impacted both the sides.
And that brings us to the end of part 1 of True Grit Down Under, a ThyGap special on the Border-Gavaskar series between India and Australia. Coming up in part 2, we go over to Melbourne for the Boxing Day test and a glorious victory for India, and so on and so forth. But you'll have to take my word for it, you do not want to miss out on the final segment of this special when it comes out. Because this special was recorded way back in February, soon after the culmination of the series, and it really got us scratching our heads. What really went wrong in the Australian camp? And all it took was one viewing of The Test on Amazon Prime, and we figured out what the elephant in the Australian dressing room was. No one wanted to touch on it way back then, but we saw it coming. It's like a train wreck that is still unraveling in front of our eyes, and you cannot look away because it's so goddamn entertaining. From a distance, of course. But since then, the cat's sort of been out of the bag, but it's nowhere near its conclusion yet. The drama still unfolds, and who knows, we may even release a follow-up, a more current update on the situation in Cricket Australia, because there's been quite a lot of interesting developments since then. So if you enjoyed this series, we hope you'll like our special as well. And let us know what were your favorite moments from the Border-Gavaskar series. Did you watch The Test? What did you make of it? mindthygap@gmail.com, or you can DM us on our socials. But until then, as we always say, ThyGap, subscribe, and share. Hey, thanks for listening. You can follow this podcast on Spotify to get notified of new episodes every Thursday. We're also on Apple Podcasts for those of you who have partaken in the forbidden fruit. If you liked what you heard, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Say anything like the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. A rating and a comment really helps us out. It's free, and I'm told that's a great price. But enough about us, huh? Tell us about yourself. Leave us a comment. Our Twitter is @ThyGap, and we are _ThyGap on Instagram.